Hi everyone, it's Tony Tonkin here from the Child Protection Party. It's glad that you could be with me today to talk to us about issues that concern you in relation to child protection. So we hope that you become involved in this conversation, that you get involved with us, and that you can have a conversation with us. And I hear a little bit of a tingle in the background, so I don't know what in the hell that is. It's probably Avery having his lunch, and I hope that it isn't dominant, because that would cause a great deal of difficulty for all of us. So I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about today is that during the last few days, we've been asked to put together some videos or some audio in relation to some of the clients that we've been working with. And I've been asked to think a little bit about the clients that have been successful and those that perhaps have not been successful. And I did a podcast yesterday that talked about two clients that I worked with, who one was successful and one wasn't. One was more deserving of being successful in terms of having the kids returned, and the other one was less deserving in a way, given, and by that I mean that they have and have not addressed some of their issues in their lives. And the one that was probably less prepared to have the children back had the children back, and the other one who was who'd really had changed her life around in the most extraordinary way didn't get her children returned to her. And it raises a continual conflict as to why this happens and why it is that on some occasions you get some people that really kind of get it together and they have their kids returned, and why others who don't tend to have it all together do get their kids back. So anyway, the point was, look, I'll just introduce Avery to everybody and then we'll get stuck into a conversation because there's many things that we need to talk about. How are you, Avery? How you going, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fabulous, thank you. I wasn't today though, because last night I didn't tend to get much sleep because I kept on thinking about this idea about, are we successful at what we do, and how successful as an organisation over the years in terms of the Child Protection Party and now the Riley Foundation. Like I had someone make a comment a couple of weeks ago on Facebook. You don't get many kids returned to the parents, and I'm quite open to any comment, Avery, that someone cares to make about the way I work or anybody within our organisation, that is either the party or the foundation, works. But it did make me think, and I appreciate the comment now, probably more so than I did at the time, but I appreciate the fact that we need to be scrutinised, we need to be transparent, and we probably, above everything else, just need to be honest with ourselves about what it is that we're doing and what's effective. And later on, last week we had, there's this wonderful woman by Narelle Clarkson, and I hope Narelle finds the time to log in today. But Narelle's made both of us, I think about lots of things in terms of the party and the things that we're doing and what we could be doing better and stuff, and I've really appreciated that. But one of the things that I think we need to start to address more is what actually prevents us from getting the outcomes that we desire. So the actual number of people that we work with who we believe could have their children returned to them is somewhere between 60 and 80%.
Yeah.
The number of kids that actually get returned to their parents is minuscule. And so as a worker, you kind of think, well, if I was working just therapeutically with clients and I was getting a very small outcome, I would be questioning what I'm doing. And how, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So there is a question mark around what is it that we could be doing differently. And Narelle's been very helpful, I think you might agree, at helping us to think about what it is that we all could be doing. That is about promoting the party, standing up for kids and getting kids returned to us. So I just noticed did you notice that Peter Moore just put
Yes.
a post up?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the point I guess I wanted to make is that we're working really hard to do whatever we do, and I get very disappointed, extremely disappointed in the outcomes at the end of the day that we get for the number of people that we as a foundation work for, and for the people that we as a party try and give a voice to, in terms of policies and doing the things that we do within the party, doing these live feeds, doing other stuff that we do, talking to people on a daily basis about the issues that concern them, trying to develop policies that fit or don't fit with people, as we're about to talk about in a moment. I hope I'm making sense and not just rambling.
No, I know what you mean. How do we get people to support us? How do we get people to criticize us? What are we doing that's right? What are we doing that's wrong?
Yes, thank you. And if you notice that we're doing anything that you think is wrong, then I would suggest that you contact us directly and let us know. Just don't spell it out on Facebook. I don't see what benefit there is in that. But certainly contact us, call us. If there's something we've said or we've done that you're offended by, let us know so we don't do it again. But don't just sit back in the background and criticise us randomly for stuff that you probably don't know all that much about. Get the facts. If we're wrong and if we've done something that we shouldn't have done, we will apologise, we'll make the difference up and we'll do something about it. But I guess part of my work is self-reflection. So a lot of the time, Avery, I spend heaps and heaps of time reflecting on what it is that I do individually that could be better, and that what we as a party could be doing that is about representing parents and kids more broadly. And getting, and one of the things that Narelle raised, is about raising our profile somehow.
Yeah.
Like how do we go about doing that in a way which gets more people to understand, which helps people to understand why it is the Child Protection Party actually exists.
Well,
that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I just want to, before I comment on that, I just want to say one thing. You said that people will often criticise or comment on something they don't know much about, and we can't really say that because that person, Peter Moore, for example, he's an adoptee. He's making comments there, and he's as an adoptee, he's got the experience. He knows what he's talking about. He's talking
I'm
about.
Not talking about that.
No, I know.
Look.
But I mean,
think people have their lived experiences, and they're the authors of their own lives. In fact, not us.
No,
I'm talking. I'll just clarify that.
Yeah, we should try to avoid generalizations. That's all.
No, I wasn't generalising. I was saying when people make an accusation against an individual, as they have done you and I.
Oh yeah.
Then they don't know us or the background. So vice versa is true. We should not make that assumption about other people either. Yeah. But when people make those assumptions about us, and they don't know the work and effort that we put in and some of the work that we do, then they're often inaccurate. Does that make sense? Because that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not having a go at anybody. I'm just saying that I know that's not a general comment. That's just specific to a few people who tend to have to say their penny's worth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now,
but there are.
To address what you said about raising public profile, over the past few years, it seems that the way that people have done it is through social media. I mean, a prime example is currently resident in the White House. Right? Trump used social media very, very, very successfully. I can't imagine that he'd have been elected, say, 20 years ago. But now, with the rise of the Twitterverse and Facebook and things like that, he was able to get into millions of houses and talk directly to people. And that I think is still. I think that's the thing that we can learn from. You know what I mean?
Well. Firstly, he has billions of dollars, and he has an organisation behind him that also has got many millions of dollars. So we don't have the advantages, and we don't have a household name either. You know,
No,
no one knows
no.
who Tony Tonkin is or Avery Hood is. So, but I guess the point is that we need to build that recognition somehow. Avery.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I was watching because I was up at 2:30 this morning, but I was watching Sam Sneeder. Do you know Sam Sneeder from
Don't know.
the US? So he's got he's been doing this stuff for years, but he's got a YouTube page, and on his YouTube page at the time that I dialed in, he had 5,800 people viewing him, and unlike us, he talks dribble. Seriously, I mean it's all politics, but I don't find the stuff that he says it's entertaining. Probably because a lot of it's about minute USA type politics, but you know, like he has the following. And it's not that I'm about us getting massive amounts of people following us. All I want to do is get the message across to people about what the party stands for, and get more and more people to support us so that we can be more effective.
Yeah,
you know? It's as simple as that. It's not complicated.
No.
But it's things. But I guess all I'm saying is it's things I worry about, and that I want to have changed. Now you've got so Peter. Peter, thanks. I hope you're still there, mate. You haven't disappeared.
I hope so.
And as an adoptee, I was just wondering if, Peter, if you can just let us know whether or not you're in front of a computer or if you're on your phone, and if you have internet access, and if you wanted to, after having a conversation with us, I'll give you a password that would help you to log in live if you wanted to. So that's taking a risk because I know nothing about you, but I can always take you off. So... So if you could, Peter, just let us know whether or not you would like to come on live, because we'd be happy to invite you if that is what you would like to do. So, Avery, I'll leave it over to you because you've got some things to say about your friend and buddy.
Oh, my friend and buddy, you mean Mr. Pell?
That's the one.
That's the one. At long last, the unredacted version of his testimony before the Royal Commission has been released. And some of the things that have come out of that, key points. The Commissioner's report was redacted in 2017. It's been released in full. They found that Pell should have urged his superiors to remove paedophile priests like Peter Searson in 1989. It found that he was aware of child abuse by the clergy as early as 1973, and he considered ways to prevent people gossiping about it. He didn't try to do something to address the actual issue and get the priests reprimanded, defrocked, reported to the police. He was more concerned about the reputation of his church than he was about the safety of the children that were being abused by clergy.
Yes, so he... So they didn't reduce the redacted. They had it redacted because it was before the High Court at the time of the release of the report, I believe. And now it's saying something I guess we all knew, but it's putting it out in the open, and that is he knew about the pedophilic behaviour of his priests, chose to do nothing about it, moved them on to other parishes where they continued to abuse. Now, isn't that tantamount? Isn't that? Yep.
I was just going to say he did make a choice about what to do about it. He chose to hide it.
Yeah, he chose to ignore it.
He chose the reputation of his church over children.
Yeah, well, how's that turned out for them?
Yeah. How many children of how many people grew up having been sexually abused by priests under Pell's control, that have gone on to do things like commit suicide, turn to drugs, had their lives destroyed by this man's inaction.
Yeah, precisely. And how many lives? Yeah, and it's just staggering because, it winds up being hundreds and hundreds of lives of young children have been destroyed, and as adults, they're pretty much their lives. A lot of them are into drugs, and they have poor relationships, and they just don't function appropriately in a community because of what this man allowed others to do.
Yeah, and it's not just the individuals that were sexually abused by the priests; it's their brothers and sisters who live with the knowledge that it happened. Their parents, if their parents are still alive, because how many of them are now have lost, where their parents have died. I don't mean directly because of what Pell didn't do. I mean, because they'd lived. These happened in the 1970s or the 80s or whenever. Pell could have done something and did nothing. Chose to protect the church, and then the parents of those children, they've aged. They're now 50 years older. So they'll like you and me. They'll be, they're getting. In fact, they'd be older than we are right now. I'd imagine.
Do you mean to say that there are people that are older than us?
Not many.
That's.
But there'd be people that would be, they'd be in their late 70s, 80s now. Many of them would have died, and they spent all that time living with the knowledge that their son, because it was normally a boy that was abused, had been abused. They'd lived all that time with the knowledge that their child had been abused by a priest, and that the church, and particularly Pell, had done nothing about it. How traumatic must that be for them? It's traumatic enough for the child that's been abused. Well,
we used to say in the I guess the principle still applies, but when I was working in the gambling programs, we'd say that for every person that was a gambler, there were 20 people that were impacted by that person's gambling. Well, I would suggest that the similar figures are true of all those people that have been sexually abused as children.
Yeah.
That, there are probably hundreds of thousands of them, who knows. So how many other people are affected, and how many of those people that have been sexually abused too as kids haven't come forward and talked about that abuse? So it's still very much, for many of those people, a secret.
Yeah.
And it's wrong.
It's definitely wrong. I mean, in this, one of the things that really saddens me, I fully understand the reasons, and I've argued the reasons on Facebook and with other people about why the High Court overturned the conviction. I fully understand their reasons.
Yep.
I would love it if the prosecution had been able to produce better evidence, so that man spends the rest of his miserable life rotting in a jail.
Yep. And they
stand with us against unacceptable practices in child protection.
And they I guess one of the problems here is that there is no way that he is going to be further punished for burying his head in the sand, doing whatever it was that he did.
No.
There's no way that he's ever going to be punished for any of that.
Yeah, and according to Catholic doctrine, right? If you believe in heaven and hell, then he belongs in hell. But because of Catholic doctrine, he has forgiven his sins, so he goes to heaven. Meanwhile, that young fella that couldn't appear in a court because he killed himself, he's going to hell because he committed the cardinal sin. Suicide is a cardinal sin. So the offender goes to heaven. The offended goes to hell and burns for eternity. He will not face any punishment. Nothing will happen to him. It's disgusting.
Well, it's just fabulous, Avery, that you're able to give us that rendition, that biblical and religious rendition.
I have been studying religion for 55 years.
I know, and as a devout atheist, I understand.
International Atheist Day. International Atheist Day today. It is.
All right. So this is your day of rejoicing, is it? So it's your version of Christmas, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, say loud and proud.
Okay.
That's not what we're here to talk about.
No, I know. Let's not, please. So I know. See, there's a comment here from June Dyer that says, "Would not trust this S group people after monies only." Is she referring to us or somebody else? And I guess it's those sort of comments that intrigue me because it doesn't. I'm trying to find that money that we're supposed to have got, or that we're looking for just to promote the cause for kids and. So that we can have more people involved. And, I don't know, Avery, how people think organisations run. Most organisations, even volunteer organisations, have some sort of funding so that they can pay for the things that are important, like electricity and lights and computers and, stuff, to get things happening. But, we don't have any of that. We do it all out of our own pocket. And then we have people like June Dyer step in and make stupid comments like that. It gets me the shits.
I've just asked the question, asked June, what does she mean? Is she talking about us? 'Cause I don't understand that comment at all.
Yeah, so if you're going to make comments, please be specific.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Peter Moore was on the phone at the time, so...
Yes, so we can't connect him. But I would like to say to Peter and to anybody else who wants to get involved in any of these discussions, if you've got access to a computer and a reasonably fast internet and a camera and got a microphone, stuff that we have, perhaps you could let Avery know, and then we will organise for you to have a connection so that you can have that voice.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with anything Peter's saying. Suicide rates for adoptees is to 4 times the general population. Who knows what the rate is for sexually abused persons? Don't know that. I know that the same sort of figures apply to people that are in care. And I guess adoption is a care process. So look, I understand that the same stats are for all of these people who for whatever reason are taken away from their biological parents. I understand that, and I certainly understand that that in the adoption fraternity, to be adopted is a terrible thing for some. I just need to make the point: it's not a terrible thing for everybody. It's like foster care. There's a old friend of mine who was fostered as a baby, and he saw his foster mum as a saint. She was the most wonderful woman you could imagine, and certainly far better than his drug-addicted mother. So some people foster care works out well. For others, it doesn't. It's trying to work out those kids that simply can't be returned because their parents are doing all the wrong things, and that they are in a home in which they are cared for and nurtured. Whatever that looks like varies. In some cases, I guess it is adoption. We're not 100% for that. That is, as Avery said earlier, I think you said, Avery, that it was the last resort.
Yeah, absolutely, last resort.
It's not our first choice at all. If all the other choices are not working out for whatever reason, and one of those choices, which is our preferred choice in many cases, is simply to be returned to their parents.
Absolutely.
So if none of that's working out for whatever reason, and adoption seems to be an alternative, then it needs to be considered. But on the other hand, if what would we prefer then? And I'll put that to Peter and other people that are on the side of non-adoption. Is long-term foster care a solution?
No.
Is having the government involved in your life forever? Is that a solution?
Well, Peter Moore. Sorry. Yeah, remember you saying, asking if Peter Moore would like, if you want to join in the conversation, you can send him a password. I've asked him that specific question, and his answer was thanks. So maybe you could bring him in.
Is he? But I just didn't know whether he's in front of a computer or.
He's no longer on his phone. That's what he was on when he first posted it here. So
all right.
Suck it and see.
Well, Peter, can you? I'll need to go into. I need to send you something on a messenger, Peter.
Well, while you do that, I can.
Can you have a conversation?
Yeah, he's on his PC. He's just replied there. I was going to say, while you do that, what I could do is talk about what we'd like people to do when we share up our different policies on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Go for it.
You do your bit there, and to bring Peter in, and I'll talk about that. Yesterday, I shared up our adoption policy on it's a policy position is what I shared up. And we have a load of those on the website, and on the website you can add your comments to it. I shared this up not because this is our position and we're cast in stone and things like that. And our policies are anything up to 5-6 years old, and they need review. And what we want to do is to get comment from the public to say, particularly with things around things like adoption, for example, where we don't have the experience of it. We don't know really, how it impacts people, and the only way we can find that is by putting it out to the public and saying, please comment. What we get when I share it on Facebook is that people put all their comments in there, and the problem with that is that as more posts come in, new stories are posted to the Facebook page, that policy thing scrolls down and eventually disappears, and we can't find the comments. On the website, we have got on every policy page that we've got, you can add your own comments to it. It does tell you must put a name in there. It does say you must put an email address. We cannot turn that off, unfortunately. And then you've got plenty of space where you can put put your criticism, your comment, your suggestions for improving the policy on there. If you're concerned about you don't want your name to be public. Firstly, when we approve a comment, because they're all subject to moderation, when we approve a comment, all that appears is the name of the person who sent the comment in and the date that they sent it. It does. So if you put your name as John Smith, that is what will appear. If you put that it's Fredo Frog, that is what will appear. If you don't want your name to appear on there, use a pseudonym. All right? It's not going to prevent you from doing that. If you don't want your email address displaying, well, they're not displayed, but we see them. All right? If you don't want your email address on available to us, then you put none@none.com or something like that.
Yep.
And
you need to turn your sound down, Peter, if you don't mind. I can see you though, buddy. I've got Peter online at the moment. I'll just try and bring him in. Just needs to turn his sound down. Put on a headset, Pete, perhaps. Would be fine. Right. Are you there, Peter? You need to say something to me, mate. See if we can bring Peter in. No, you're fine. Can you hear us okay?
I can get a headset if I need one.
We can bring Peter in. No, you're fine. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I can get a headset if I need one.
No, you're fine. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I can get it if I need one. I
just had to add me. I think that's coming through. Yep. Can you hear us okay, Pete?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, I have a lot of feedback.
Well, if you're getting feedback, you might need to pop a headset on.
I'll get a headset.
Can you grab a headset?
Okay, Pete? Yeah, bear with me. I'll get a headset.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a second, mate. I need to pop a headset on.
I'll get a headset.
So there we go. We're proving that technology works, as much of a struggle as it might be, and it's good that Peter could join us at such short notice.
It is. It would be really good if people could, who wanted to take part, let us know, and we can bring. Ideally, before the thing starts, if we publish what the talk's going to be about, people can who want to join us can say, "Can I join in?" And you can send them the necessary link. I think it'll work on a mobile as well, but I don't know.
Yeah.
right? So anyway, I said,
try.
just to finish off what I was saying before, while you were bringing Peter on board, we need your comments on the policy positions that we share up on Facebook. We'd much rather have them put into the comments added on the website rather than on Facebook, because after just a few days we cannot find them on Facebook anymore. So all that you had to say that's commenting on a particular policy is gone, and it's gone forever. On the website we've got it forever. Right? Much better that people put it there. If you want to remain anonymous, use a pseudonym. Because we do see the email address, the party executive who've got admin rights on the website, the few of us that have got the admin rights on the website, because we see that address. If you don't want us to know it, just type in none@none.com, and we've got an email address now that is meaningless. Okay.
Yeah.
Back over to you, Tony.
Just bear with. I'm just trying to be smart here and add our mate Pete to this one here. So I've got to scale him down. All right, pop him in. It's a bit of farting around here, Pete. Sorry, mate. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, and I'll give you a chance in a second. I just need to make sure you're looking good. It's pretty damn important here, isn't it, Avery?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Welcome, Peter. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Beautiful, and we can hear you fine too. You're looking good. So, Pete, perhaps you could just
thanks for inviting us.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you could join us at such short notice, mate. It's a pleasure to have you here. So, thanks for that. So, perhaps you could just talk to us a bit about your experiences in relation to around adoption, and maybe if you want to tell you a bit of your story and what that's like, that might help people as well to understand it. Go for it.
We've got some terrible feedback coming on. I'm hearing the conversation over and over and over again.
Yeah, well, while you're talking, I don't know if it's this one would be better or not. I'll give that a shot. How's that? Is that okay? Can you hear that or not?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, we can hear you fine. Yeah. You're on screen, so tell us your story, mate.
Okay, you want my story or my advocacy? Okay.
Well, you might choose to do both.
Okay, my story is 3 years ago with via ancestry DNA, I discovered I was adopted at 59 years old.
All right.
And I'm getting terrible feedback here. I could just hear my conversation going backward and forward.
Yeah, I don't know if I can fix that from this end. This is the problem. Normally, when we set this up, we do a trial of both ends, and I record it just to make sure that we've got all the sound and everything right. Bringing you in hasn't given us that opportunity. So if you want to just talk and put your headset down around your ears and just use the microphone while you're talking, that's fine.
I'll move back from the...
I don't know if that's going to make any difference to you, mate.
All right, is that any better?
Well, we're not hearing the feedback, only you are. So just tell us your story and what it was like for you to discover such a... Tell us what it was like.
We're not hearing the feedback, only you are. Yeah, all right. Let's see how we go. So just tell us your story and what it was like.
No, we're still here.
Tell us what it was like. It was like traumatic, to say the least. Everything that I
now this is getting more confusing, mate. We're getting the feedback from over. We're getting the feedback over your headset.
Everything that I this is getting more confusing.
The Facebook feed.
we're very patient people, Peter. So we're okay. Just mute the feed on your Facebook page,
Yeah. If you just hover
and
over
that'll probably solve the problem.
if you just hover over the feed, it'll pop up and you'll see it.
Okay. Yeah, that might be it.
Because you're getting it from Facebook and from us at the same time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Go for it, mate. Sorry, we've sorted it out. I hope everybody's on board. The people that watch our feeds, mate, are very patient. They have to be.
I can't see the feed now, but I can talk.
Go for
All
it.
right. Yeah. Basically, my story, as I said, at 59 years old, I did a DNA test and matched with a very close match. Didn't quite understand what was going on. Turned out the close DNA match I had was, in fact, my sister.
All right.
And that was my discovery. The first, the thing that alerted me to it was that I googled the hospital I knew I was born at, only to discover all this thing about forced adoption and the government apology, which I didn't know anything about the apology. I didn't know that Julia Gillard had made a formal apology, apologising for forced adoption and illegal forced adoption. And I've watched that video of her over and over and over. But from a personal thing, that at 59 to find out everything that you believed was correct, about your life was a complete and utter lie, and was a lie from the day that the government decided to cancel my real birth certificate and fabricate a fake birth certificate which says that I was born to adoptive parents. Like, to me, that's bizarre. It's delusional. I still can't. I can't get my head around that anyone would actually do that. But that's what adoption is, and that's exactly what adoption is today. Nothing's changed. They're still doing that. They're still changing that birth certificate. I've found 8 siblings. I've met my mother and been reunited with her. I have 8 siblings, 3 on my father's side, 5 on my mother's side, and I'm not related to them legally. Under the Adoption Act, I'm still a child. The Adoption Act states, definition of a child: someone who's under 18 or someone who's over 18 who has been adopted or will be adopted. I'm 62-year-old, and I'm governed by an Adoption Act that dictates my life. I'm advocating for many things, but 2 of the prime things is never to change that birth certificate. A birth certificate should be a snapshot, as accurate as possible, a snapshot of the birth, of who you were when you were born, who your parents were. And the only time that should be changed is only to fill in the details, actual details of, say, your father. Because in my case, my father's not on my birth certificate. I know who he was. I never got to meet my father. My father died in 1982, and that's something that I'll never get over. I travelled to Italy just to visit his grave. It's I just can't get around the birth certificate. The other thing that I'm advocating for is a no fault discharge. I don't know if you're aware, but adoptions can be discharged under legislation. You have to go to court. A number of people have done that and had their adoptions annulled and reverted back to the original birth certificate. And as an adult, shouldn't have to go to court and beg a judge to identify with who you identify with. We've got legislation in this country that allows LGBTIQ, whatever it is at the moment, an ability to identify with who they are. But adoptees don't get that right. We don't have the same equal rights as other citizens. And everyone wants to believe this, fanciful story of, happy ever after adoptees. That's not the case. You've only got to Google adoptee trauma, and you'll see it all. We've got Facebook sites full of people. I'm communicating with other adoptees all over the world. Yeah, and there's thousands of people in these sites, and a lot of them are under fake Facebook names because they're torn between families. They're torn between, a loyalty to their adopted family and the need to know who their real family is. And, some people argue, his real family is who you grow up. It's not that simple. It's complex. A lot of the people that I meet have got complex, traumas. It's an elephant in the room, and no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm actually the. Sorry,
Peter, can you describe to me then? Because I get from what you're saying that there is kind of like a loss of identity. I guess you grow up for so long thinking one particular thing, then suddenly, in your case, later in life, you find there's this other reality. Can you describe what that moment's like?
Right. A little bit of background. I was a family genealogist. I had 13,500 people in my tree. I travelled with my adopted parents to family tree reunions interstate on numerous times. I actually had a headstone remade for the Irish convict ancestor, and I put on his grave and did the grave all up and helped create a reunion, family tree reunion around that, and had people come interstate and that to that reunion in, I think at the time now, I think it was 1988, Australia Day 1988. Not my ancestor. None of them were. I'm not Irish. I'm half Italian and Aboriginal on my mother's side. Yeah. For months, when I found out, I'd look in the mirror and go, really? I'm Italian? It's a complete loss. And I've seen posts of other people who have said that. They look in the mirror. It's a roller coaster, an absolute roller coaster of emotions. 1 minute you're high because you've discovered something, and another minute you're low. And look, over time that plateaus, but things trigger it. All sorts of things trigger. Might be a song. If I see a reunion story of anyone else, read about it or see it on TV or something, that you just well up because it affects you. It brings it all back home again, and this is the trauma of it, and you can't get back everything that's lost. When you do have a reunion, and my reunions have been reasonably good compared to a lot of the horror stories that I talk to adoptees. A friend of mine that I alluded to before, he has an analogy. He says to a friend of his, look, there's a tree over there. I said, here's a saw, go and cut a limb off that tree. And his friend goes and cuts the limb off the tree, and he says, now what you want me to do? He says, go and stick it on that tree over there. He said, well, it won't stay, that won't work. He said, well, put it back where you got it from. Stick it back where you got it from. He said, well, it won't fit there either. He said, well, stick it in the ground there. He says, that's me. I don't fit anywhere. Once you sever from families, you never get it back. I can't get back all, growing up with my siblings. And it doesn't traumatise me, it traumatizes them too. It traumatized my children. They grew up with a name which isn't theirs, a history which isn't theirs. They've got grandparents which really aren't their grandparents. It's intergenerational. We just mess with things because I have a saying. It says that the road to trauma is paved with good intentions. And whilst they might have been good intentions, they were wrong. And we need to acknowledge that, and we need to acknowledge that that people are traumatised through this. And you said about foster children are traumatised. I know I've had so many. Look, we've had, I don't know, I've lost count, 10, 15 foster children through our home, and they're all traumatised in some way. And you can't fix that. The best you can do is not add to it, and give them a safe and loving home, and look after them. But you can't. You're never going to fix it. They'll still have trauma from that when they're 60, 70 years old, and and it is a difficult situation. But we seem to be spending the money in the wrong place. Yeah, the money should be spent trying to support families. I just.
So Peter, if I can just ask you though, if you were, so in terms of our adoption policy is our last resort. It's after everything else seems to have failed,
Yep.
And then I don't see adoption as an alternative either. I don't see separation from family where the family can still care for that child is an option either. And I don't know, I'm just curious as to where you see, forget about adoption for a moment, but just the removal of kids.
Yeah, okay, my argument is that I care so much for the children in my care that I wouldn't sever them from their family. And in the case for the child that's in my care, and they're not a child anymore, they're 16-year-old, and they've been with us for nearly 9 years now. My house is an open house to their siblings, and their siblings come here unannounced to me, just arrive and say, "Oh yeah, we're here to spend the night, or we're here to take it away for the day, or well, we might take it away for the weekend." Great, I think that's fantastic, And I can't replace, we can't replace mum and dad, but we can care for them. I know from my experience now, I thought this way before I found out I was adopted, but from my experience, their biological family is so important. And you can't just focus on it's mum or dad. They've got siblings, they've got aunts, they've got uncles, they've got grandparents. Too often, grandparents who can be kinship carers, and they're ignored by facts. We need to spend more on focusing on keeping the families together, even if it's kinship carers. And I know they do that a lot, but they don't do it enough. Adoption just shouldn't be on the table. It's just archaic. The original adoption laws in Australia came from Western Australia in 1896, and a guy named W.H. Whitnum, from Whitnum Mines, the asbestos mine, member of Parliament, and he stated the reason for adoption was to ensure that the children couldn't be taken back from the adoptive parents just when they may be becoming useful. Adoptees are, by and large, adopted to people who cannot have children and have an overwhelming desire to have a child no matter what, and have them take their surname to carry on their surname. That's what it was in my case. People don't have a right to a child. It's not, they never think about the child. They're thinking about their need, not the child's need. No one was thinking about my need.
So for you, it's kind of like a sense of ownership, perhaps.
It is, yeah. We're a commodity. Absolutely. Yeah. We're a commodity. We'll trade it. We're owned. That's what that original legislation that all the legislation sits on was about, ownership. It's transferring a title. We're transferred from this family to that. And our name is changed because they own the name. They own us.
So, what state are you in, Peter?
I'm in New South Wales.
New South Wales. Are you a member of the Child Protection Party? That's the most important question.
I am, actually.
Oh, good. You're a good man, because we need to put you in contact with our person. Look, this is a recruitment process, and we've just decided we want to recruit you, Pete.
I'd recruit you, but you're not adopted. Sorry.
Well, you don't know that.
Oh, I
But
don't.
my,
Hey,
Yeah.
No, you
hey,
don't.
Pete, have you had
I'm
your
not.
DNA done?
I'm not.
Yeah,
No,
Tony,
my wife's-
Peter's been adopted once. Maybe he doesn't want it again.
I was going to adopt him again. But
Probably
no,
proud of
but
him.
my wife is a foster kid, so it's not like I don't live with that experience. So, yeah, Pete, look, I really do mean this very heartfelt. I think you joining this conversation has been fabulous. Our policies are always, I keep telling the party this, they just think I'm crazy, but our policies are always in flux.
Yeah.
You know, we get someone as exciting and as knowledgeable as you on, and Sharon White's another one that helps to, I guess, pull us back into shape, because your views are important, extremely important. And it's not just because you have these views, it's because you have the lived experiences. You know what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, I got to come in there. Yeah, the lived experience is important. We're saying everyone's made these decisions in the past based on what they thought was the right thing.
Yeah.
And you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, they thought they were doing the right thing, you know, but we have, you know, us with lived experience now. We don't need to go on, what we think might be right, what we think might work. There is a wealth of experience of people out here with adoptees with lived experience. Yeah, there's no studies, you know, truly independent studies done into the longitudinal studies done into the effects of adoption, you know, over someone's lifetime. We know what it is, but there's no official studies, and you know, we're not sitting. You know, I'm sitting at some round tables with government, but I'm not sitting with all the round tables of government. We need to be sitting with more. We need to all be sitting down, and we need to be looking at other ways of doing this. You know, with better outcomes. You know, we can, as I say, no matter what happens, you separate a child from the family, they're going to be traumatised. But
that's so true. So true, and unfortunately, I don't think the people that do the separating actually understand that either.
No, one of the round tables I sat on for out of home care for a report for Aboriginal children, I had the pleasure of sitting on I am still on the round table, and the report came down, was 400 pages long with 125 recommendations, which were unanimously adopted. Our second meeting of that round table has been held up with the COVID. But the worry is, like all of these things, is that we can present these recommendations to government, but they don't do anything. They sit there on the shelf and, you know, 3 or 4 years down the track, someone else does another one, and another heap of recommendations come in, and it sits back on the shelf again. We need to break that cycle and get things actually happening.
Well, maybe we need something like a child protection party to protect people against those sorts of things. Maybe.
I think we need everyone in unison to all get together and pressure governments.
Absolutely. Peter, I'm going to finish off now, but I just want you to stay online so that Avery and I can have a chat to you afterwards.
Sure.
You okay with that? So don't sign out as I sign out of Facebook and YouTube, but just stay there if you wouldn't mind. We'd like to have a chat with you further in just a moment.
Excellent.
So,
Terrific.
Avery, you got anything you want to ask? You got anything you want to ask of Peter at all before we go?
Not that I'm going to ask here now. I might have a couple of questions once.
I've got stacks of questions to ask the poor bastards. So we'll finish. So I'm just gonna say now. So I'd just like to thank everybody for participating. We had a number of people online today, and I just want to finally thank Peter for contributing to this discussion. it was great having him being out. I'm sorry I had to fart around with it for a bit and we had to get it right. But
Yeah, that was all my fault.
Thank you for, well, we now know, so we can solve that problem a bit quicker next time, perhaps, whenever it happens, Pete. But I just want to thank everybody for staying with us during this discussion. And Sharon, I see Sharon White's on. Sharon, I want to thank you as well. And I just need people to know that your voices are heard, that our role as the Child Protection Party is to ensure that all voices are incorporated and that we have a debate. We may not necessarily agree on everything together, but it's important that we have a discussion to sort that stuff out. And believe me, when it comes to values, principles, some of the moral stands that we make, they're pretty rigid. But in terms of some of the policy decisions that we need to make, they're relatively flexible. So thanks everybody for being with us, and we look forward to catching you when we have a live feed, hopefully on Saturday. If you wish to participate in this live feed, as Peter did today, just let us know. We can incorporate you in if you can sit in front of a computer and have your headset and other stuff so you can communicate with us. So thanks everybody.
Stand with us against unacceptable practices in child protection. We are releasing a video with in-depth research and evaluation of this practice, as well as a discussion video. So please subscribe, hit the bell, and visit our website to see how you can get more involved. Stand with us against unacceptable practices in child protection. We are releasing a video with in-depth research and evaluation of this practice, as well as a discussion video. So please subscribe, hit the bell, and visit our website to see how you can get more involved. Stand with us against unacceptable practices in child protection. We are releasing a video with in-depth research and evaluation of this practice, as well as a discussion video. So please subscribe, hit the bell, and visit our website.